Today's guest is Pauline Leung, a former global executive at L'Oreal, a high performance and leadership coach, certified yoga teacher, and holistic health practitioner. Pauline spent over 19 years building her corporate career across Europe, Asia, and the US, rising from marketing intern to general manager by the age of 30, and later transitioning into human resources. Along the way, she navigated complex leadership environments, cultural dynamics, and high pressure performance expectations. What makes Pauline's journey especially powerful is that she didn't just climb the ladder. She also chose to redefine what success feels like. Through her own burnout and career transitions, she discovered the importance of energy management, mindset, and sustainable leadership. Today, she helps ambitious professionals build high performance without sacrificing well-being, confidence, or fulfillment. Pauline, welcome to the Her Workplace Unfiltered podcast.
Thank you, Marilynn. Such a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. And just for the audience to know, Pauline is actually a coach with us here at Her Workplace. So excited to share more about how she works with us and her upcoming program and events and workshops that she does. So we'll share more information about that. But first, I want to just start off with your own career journey, Pauline. Kind of what did your experience look like in corporate? What motivated your ambition early on in your career?
Yeah, of course. And I do believe, because I get this question a lot, being asked, like, what did you do to get promoted every year? And indeed, what was your ambition behind that? I think for me, especially when I was younger, it was really about doing my best work. And every moment that I did my best work, the more that I achieved more, it was almost that I wanted to be promoted because I felt I deserved it. So I didn't necessarily go for the promotions, but I always thought every month, I thought, how can I do this presentation better? Or with my sales, with my clients, I thought, how can I sell better? So the more that I was able to achieve, the more that I was asking for promotions. And it did lead me to like getting promoted every year.
Yeah, that's a lot of what we do, as you know, at Her Workplace, of really helping and teaching women to take ownership of their growth. So
Right.
that's incredible that you had that very early on. I'm curious if your definition of success changed as you moved into senior leadership roles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the first part, especially the first 6 years, I was an individual contributor. I did have an intern, but I was able to selfishly work with my timeline, with my own pressure. And I believe that at that moment, every time when you get promoted, I felt great, especially when you just start, you live paycheck by paycheck. So very often when I felt I deserved more was also I felt that I deserve a higher paycheck. But then as your question is, the more that you are responsible for a team, that's when I learned that it no longer felt successful by being promoted if I actually see that my team wasn't rising with me. And very often it was making myself just have this reality check, as in, are my team actually happy? And sometimes I would not necessarily be conscious about it, but then luckily in our company, we had leadership behavior surveys, and I actually get the feedback that they were not always happy with me. So even though it's so hard to get this feedback, it is needed, and it's certainly a tool for your blind spots to be visible. So for sure, the moment I was in charge of people, success no longer felt like just getting the title or getting the paycheck. It was really, is my team actually happy or not?
Yeah, it becomes more about them and their own success.
Absolutely.
And that's really hard to take on and shift that perspective when you are becoming a manager or you're stepping into leadership positions.
Right. And that's why it's always the moment you become a leader, you really have this mirror in front of you, and
Mm-hmm.
all your worst fears, as in insecurity or the imposter syndrome, everything flares up the moment you get the feedback and you get scores that are 3 out of 5 or 2.5 out of 5. And I think even though those are painful, but it really is such a good mirror for us to reflect how can we be better. And then all of a sudden you know that success just looks very, very different.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to make that career pivot? Did you always see yourself growing in corporate and stepping into more leadership roles? What kind of led
Yeah.
you to the work you do today?
So a lot of people actually don't know, which is that I left L'Oreal already after a decade.
Mm,
So I became a general manager when I was 30 years old. And when I turned 33, I actually left corporate. And I didn't think to actually become a coach. At that time, I left to just live. I forgot
mhm,
who I was. I did not know what my hobbies were. I didn't know who I was. And I felt, so at that time I was in Vietnam, I also felt this immense sense of loneliness. And I think I left to actually find out who I am, but also what am I here to do? And to ask this big question that it's very scary to ask, which is, why am I here on earth? And it sounds very spiritual, but in the end, it is a good question to ask yourself, like, why are we here? So I left corporate to actually find out. And for
mhm,
18 months, every day, I was just practicing yoga. But at the same time, I also became a certified holistic coach, holistic health coach. And so without me thinking about being a coach, this is what I studied. But I also
mm,
learned in those 18 months that I was on a sabbatical, I also learned that I loved the corporate world and that I actually loved the job that I did. So that's why I went back to L'Oreal and worked another 9 years with them, but this time with my coaching background to actually support myself. And
mm,
I was also being a coach on the side. So that was like my side hustle next to my corporate job. So my second time round, so back in 2023, when I left, it was a very, I would say, deliberate choice, but it was also a choice because I have practiced or I had it on the side already. So it was not something that came out of nowhere. I was basically doing it for 9 years next to my job at L'Oreal.
mhm. And you talk a lot about corporate environments and just in general being in very demanding careers.
Right.
What were some of those signs for you that pointed you in that direction of, okay, I need to make a change or I need to step away?
Yeah. So when I was very young, I would say 25, 26, and I'm sure many listeners are of this age,
Hmm.
I actually had a lot of physical pains and I would say physical consequences of me working really, really hard.
Mm.
So my weekly hours were around 80 to 100 hours a week. So I was
Wow.
working every day till midnight. And I think in 8 years, I didn't have a weekend off. So I was working a lot. And during that time, I remember the longest period because I used to journal a lot, which is a good thing. So I can read back. But the longest period, I actually had chest pain. So every time I would breathe, I would actually have pain in my chest. It
Wow.
was for 14 months straight that I had chest pain. However, I was so young that I thought, it's okay. I am young. I have chest pain. It might be stress, but it's okay. I will survive. And once this project is done, once I get promoted, I will see what happens. And this is just to say that even though you see the signs, for the love of the work itself and being a high achiever at that time and not a high performer, I was there to achieve. So I
Mm.
ignored it and I just went on for another few years. But the moment that I realized that I really had to make a change was when I was a general manager. And at that time, I was in so much pain that I couldn't move my neck and my shoulders.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
couldn't even look left and right. So the only workout I could do was to run, because then you only go forward. You don't have to look left
Right.
and right. You don't have to twist. You just run. So I remember, Marilynn, it was Saturday morning. I had a really stressful week. It was 10 a.m. and I just got to the closet, wore my sneakers, and I went out in Ho Chi Minh City. So it's 100 degrees, which is like 35 Celsius outside. So I just went out and ran, and I was just running and listening to loud music, but I was running away from my problems and just running as
Mm,
fast as I could. And at a moment when I was at a crossroad, I didn't even look to the left because my neck was not making me to look to the left. So I got in a really bad accident. So I got
no.
hit by a motorbike. And at the moment that I was laying on this intersection, downtown Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and
Oh my
just
gosh.
covered in sweat and my own tears. But, I was being the general manager, having a driver, a beautiful apartment. Like at that moment, I just felt like a failure. And that was the
Mm,
moment that I realized if I don't make changes now, that's it. So that
mm.
that was for me this pivotal moment that I thought and that I knew if I'm not the one changing the way I live, then that's that.
Yeah. And it's not sustainable either.
Exactly. So I needed a physical shock.
Wake up call. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
absolutely.
Wow. That's just a crazy story. You mentioned something about high achieving versus high performance.
Mm,
What's the difference between the two? Because for me, I kind of think of them as the same, but I know that you, in the work that you do, have a very strong definition about what they both are,
right.
how they're different.
Yeah. So when I start with high achievers, so those who are high achieving, they are there to achieve something, whether
Hmm.
it's a title, or it's a race. So they are going for a certain destination. And with that, they sacrifice whether it's their health, their personal time, or they sacrifice their values. Because what is most important for those who are high achievers is to actually achieve what it is that they want. And very often, what is it that they want is something external and visible.
Mm.
When it comes to high performance, is that you perform, first of all, it's a feeling. So
Hmm.
it's to feel energized, it's to feel motivated, it's to feel passionate. And they focus actually on the journey. So they have a destination in mind, but they enjoy the journey towards it. So high performance are those who daily check in with themselves. How do I feel? Did I do my
Mm.
best every day? So it's really a journey that you walk on, as in, am I delivering my best every single day? So it
Mm.
really is journey focused rather than destination focused. And that's the beauty of high performance, is that when you focus on a journey, you might end up beyond that destination, or you
Yeah,
actually end up that the destination is actually something different. So it's really feeling and energy focused work.
I love that. And it really is about kind of those daily practices that you have that kind of lead up to wherever it is that you're going. And
Absolutely.
for me personally, I've gone through that transition of initially being high achieving for so long until I hit that burnout period.
Mm,
And now focus more on how can I be high performing on a daily basis?
right.
Do you have any recommendations of like practices, like 1 to 2 daily things that listeners can do on a daily basis that make a big difference when it comes to being high performing, protecting your energy, being focused? What would you recommend?
Yes. I think for me, and it sounds, I wouldn't say like it sounds simple, but for me, journaling is one thing that I've seen has so much impact in my life as well as in my clients. And very often, it might not be a practice that you think could be effective, because very often journaling, they just say, oh, but then we actually write about our complaints, or we actually write about things that we want. So we are focusing on things that we do not have. But that's the thing, is that when you journal, you have to have certain prompts in mind. So when
Mm,
you think about, oh, let me just complain, it could be journaling, but I actually think that's brain dumping. It works wonders for your nervous system. So there's no right or wrong. So if you feel that your journaling is just to complain about everything that's going on, then you're brain dumping. It totally is effective when you want to release stress. But if you
mm,
do that every day, there has to be a moment when you reflect. And that reflection comes when you read back, let's say your past 2 weeks of journaling. And if every single day was just complaining, and when you read that back, you're actually able to spot patterns. You're able to
mm,
spot your own mindset. Are you playing the victim, or you can challenge yourself? What you've written, is that true? Is it not true? So it could be an effective way, but at the same time, when you journal and you have certain prompts, whether it's a prompt of what you're grateful for, or what are you proud of today, or name 3 things that you believe you've done exceptionally well, those kind of prompts make you feel lighter. Because in the
mm,
end, when we are journey focused, it is really about giving yourself the recognition that you did the best that you
mm,
could. So, journaling, I would say, is a really great way of just cultivating energy. Because in the end, there are certain cultures, and I'm saying that having worked in Europe and Asia and the US, there are certain cultures where I see that burnout is more prone, and in certain cultures where people are a bit slower in the way they build their career. It's not that they don't do their work well, they do. However, they are doing it in such a honorable way, by honoring themselves and
mm,
honoring their team and honoring their boss. They see it as an act of service, is that behind the work that they do, they reflect of, why am I doing that? Who am I serving? So that if in our culture we are not often reflecting that, then journaling can be a great way to do that, so that
mm.
you tie what you do with why you are doing certain
Yeah.
things. Yeah,
Because it can be so easy to just get lost. Like
absolutely.
you're in the grind, you're going through your daily routine. We can so easily get disconnected from, okay, what is my purpose here? What are my
Exactly.
values? How
Yeah,
does that align with the things that I'm doing on a daily basis?
absolutely. And that's why when you are slower, you're able to listen better. First of all, listen to yourself better, listen to others, but also observe.
Mm,
And very often, when we want certain things, so when we want to achieve something, we want to then be visible. So when our constant push is to be visible because we want that promotion, for example, we are less oblivious about what is going on around you. And with
mm,
that, we miss certain gestures, we miss facial expression of our team or other people. And with that, you're just selfishly focused on, I have to be visible. This is what it takes. Let me do that because I want this promotion. So I have to ace my presentation, or I want to reach this certain outcome. And then everything becomes a blur, like things around you becomes a blur, and you focus on that one thing.
mm,
And that not only makes you not having the impact that you want, you actually burn a lot of bridges. So in the long run, even if you hold that promotion, you can burn out because the team around you is not supporting you the way they should. So very often, it's not a specific thing that you did for you to burn out. It's really this whole environment that you created along the way that has a lot of consequences in who you are as a leader and if you are successful as a leader.
yeah. I was going to kind of lead into this discussion with you about what does true leadership look like
Hmm.
beyond, you know, authority and titles and the things that you're doing on a daily basis. But yeah, it truly is about awareness.
Absolutely. It's about awareness, and it's also about knowing that when you are a leader, you are here to serve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at a young age, you have to learn this by understanding what is important. So, an example, for example, is when I was in Vietnam, I remember that my P&L was by default, it was negative. We had import taxes that we had to pay. We didn't have enough distribution points, so the point of sales. For example, with Lancome, we only had 7 department stores at that time. There was no e-commerce or other retailers that we could sell our product to. So our fixed cost was just simply too high. What that meant is that my division wasn't profitable. So when we have our annual big meetings in Paris, I remember my manager, who was a regional APAC manager, told me, you can not go with your team. It's only you. And in those annual meetings is when you hear and see the next year's big launches, the strategy, the 360 marketing plan. You're able to network and meet all your peers globally. So my team was completely defeated and they were very upset. And as a leader, I understand where they're coming from because it's their time to actually be inspired, but to also build their career, to network and be with their peers. So for me, it was really okay, as a leader, what am I to do? So I remember during that time, I was asking myself very often, what would it mean if I actually am able to bring my team? I don't have the funds. It's not about personal sacrifices to chip in your own funds.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was, what are the costs that I'm making and how am I able to bring my team, which is to downgrade my business class ticket to coach, to economy, and be with my team. And is it harsh? Absolutely. It's an 18-hour flight. There's no direct flight at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something worth it. So these are the little things that
Mm-hmm.
you do in order to really prove to yourself and to the team that a leader is indeed not the authority or for you to be above anyone. You're at the same level doing the work, but you're there to support them so that they can do the work and for your division then to rise because you gave them the environment to do that.
I love that. How can women easily develop these leadership skills, especially ones that you've had a lot of experience working in other countries? For those that are listening that are working across different environments and industries and cultures, what would your recommendation be for building those skills?
I think, first of all, especially for women, is to really see what is it that you need yourself in order to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Because women tend to be more caring, but at the same time, and this is, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an expert in gender. However, at L'Oreal, I worked with many women. I'm a woman myself. I have a lot of female clients right now. And what I see is that women tend to be more insecure when it comes to our capabilities
Mm-hmm.
and whether we are smart enough and good enough and kind enough. So whenever we are a leader, as I just mentioned, that mirror that we have in front of us, that's why it's so important to reflect for ourselves. What is it that we need in order to feel more confident, to
Yeah.
feel more secure, to feel more safe, and to be aware of our own inner voice? Because for women, especially, we are our own worst critics, not
Yes.
our boss, but it's ourselves.
So true.
So across countries, cultures, I've really seen that is that women really tend to beat themselves up.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we do get feedback, even though it's the most constructive feedback, it hurts us so much because we have already told ourselves that story. So the moment we actually hear that story from someone else, it triggers this immense pain that even when someone says, don't take it personal, we do take it personal
Yeah.
because we are naming that to, we are saying that to ourselves already every single day.
This actually reminds me just a personal story of my experience. I actually did ballet up until like my early 20s. And growing up in a ballet environment, it's actually good to get feedback. Like, because it means that the instructor noticed you.
Right.
So if they're like, Marilynn, lift your leg higher, or Marilynn, I want to see 3 turns, or Marilynn, do this. Like, you want that constructive criticism because it means you were noticed.
Absolutely.
So that's so interesting just to reflect on that of there's just this negative connotation, right? With constructive criticism.
Exactly.
And we think of it as such a bad thing. Whereas I was taught it was a good thing growing up.
Yes. And feedback is a really good thing. That's why my pivot moment, indeed, from an individual contributor to a leader, for me, it was the realization that I wasn't a good leader, made me rethink what leadership meant. And that's why those who are in companies who don't have formal leadership surveys, it's still a good thing to do your own Survey Monkey or your own Google questionnaire and to ask your team members to actually fill in, because feedback is the best tool to improve. But especially for women, it's to understand that if the feedback is painful, it's to understand where is that pain coming from.
Yeah. Do you have any recommendations for women that may feel that internal insecurity? What are some ways to build up your confidence, especially when you're in these environments of high pressure, or, you are still kind of navigating your way, or you're unsure about certain things, or you're afraid to speak up? Do you have any kind of tactical resources or advice on that?
Yes, I think that the most practical thing to do, and it's not easy, but nothing that is sustainable is easy. Like everything in life is actually hard, and everything in life that we want to achieve takes a long time. It's really the practice. So instead of framing it as, how can I be more confident? Or how can I be more secure? How do I feel more secure? It's to actually focus on something different, which is, how can I have more courage? How can I be braver? How can I focus on action and movement? And how can I focus on doing this one thing 1% better than yesterday? The more that you think in a way of 1% better, in a year, it's just compounded action. You are 37 times better than a year before. So it's true. It's not overnight changes. You don't see changes in 28 days or in 2 months. But if you focus on, I feel indeed insecure, but how can I take that action despite insecurity? It's to know that there is a confidence and competence loop. So the more that we become competent in something, we become more confident. So whether it's public speaking, or and I can say that by experience that I'm a introverted extrovert, is that
Me too.
right? Love that. And I think it's the best for me. I feel that it's so good because we tend to be lacking confidence, but because of that, we have this learning mindset. We have this student mindset, this forever student mindset. So every day we think to ourselves, how can we be just a bit better today? And to not know enough to see that as a strength, because then we ask better questions. We reach out more, because if we feel that we are confident and we don't need anyone's help, you tend to just do without asking for help. But what we have learned is that asking for help is a good thing, because two brilliant minds looking at something will always be a better outcome. So I really think that, just to answer your question, is focus on being courageous, being brave, and knowing that movement is practice. And the more you do the reps, the more competent. And with that, more confident.
I love that. The more competence leads to more confidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so true because the more that you move and you do something, the more comfortable you get with it.
Absolutely.
And thus, the more confident you become.
Absolutely. And that's high performance, is that high performance is really having this athlete mindset that the brain, even though the brain is not a muscle, but it can be compared like a muscle. So the more you do the reps, you are building strength. And not overnight, but nobody can argue that when you do 30 bicep curls after a year, you will see muscle definition. That's just, cause and effect. So you have to trust that whenever you choose motion, action, and doing the thing despite feeling insecure, just go for it, do it, and you will see the result.
I want to talk about the work that you do with clients. And, it's a challenging environment right now with job losses and, people are looking for career changes. As the people that you work with move through these career setbacks and challenges and obstacles, what would you recommend, or what do you recommend to them of how to get through those cycles without losing that confidence, without losing momentum, without losing themselves?
I think my answer could be different depending on where you are, but let me focus on those who currently are in a job. I think what's the most important thing is that you don't prepare your situation the moment that something bad happens. And in bad, I mean that you're being made redundant, for example. So the moment that you prepare is the moment that you actually have the biggest stability. It's just like health. It's just like everything that is important, is that the moment that you are working on your health, when you are unhealthy, that's when it takes the most out of you, and you might not have the energy to actually heal. So for you to actually be healthy, it's to work on your health while you are healthy. So for those who are in a corporate job right now and they love what they do, they're good in what they're doing, it's really important for them to always have this journey in mind, and for them to once in a quarter sit back and to reflect. Will I still do this job a year from now? Or how do I see myself 3 years from now? These are not questions just to answer when you have a year-end review with your boss. These are questions that you owe yourself to ask yourself every single quarter. Am I actually on the right track? Or do I feel fulfilled? Or what are my hobbies? What would I do for the love of doing it? Those are the moments that you actually build your side thing that you are passionate about. Or what is it that I would love to learn? And that's why those who tell me, Pauline, I have an imposter syndrome, I always be like, thank God that you have one. Because then you can ask yourself, okay, so what is it that you would love to be better at? If it's AI, if it's to speak better, if it is to be more creative or to actually develop something, then do that in your spare time. Because when you want to learn something and to do something for the love of it, that's where you broaden your skill set. And the moment that because I know, and it's so true, like your net worth is your network, etc., you don't network when you need something from someone. That's not networking, right? So the best moment to be out there and to enjoy networking and to make really good connections is when you don't need something from someone.
Yeah.
So I would really say for those, and hopefully it's the majority of the listeners, is to really live a full life. Live a life with work, but also what you love to do, what you want to learn, and see your life as just like this beautiful circle with work not taking up the whole circle, but taking a part of it, and then live a full life so that you really just spread everything around you so that whenever something happens, you can recalibrate.
Mm-hmm.
Then to answer your question for those indeed who are in a hard time right now is to have more trust. And it's not easy, but what is really beautiful that there are many communities, her workplace as one of them. And I really love for you to open up, for example, her workplace for those who unfortunately got laid off earlier in the year or right now. It's really to be in a community where you focus on, I trust that things will work out
Mm-hmm.
and that
Yeah.
things are happening for a reason, and that you're at some point able to connect the dots. And I truly believe that sometimes things do happen for a reason, but also be humble enough to say, this is the right opportunity for me to do a traineeship. This is the right opportunity for me to shadow someone that I have always loved to do, and just give your services and give your time for almost the sake of learning, because your resume can be done in a way you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you always wanted to pivot industry, this is the right time to shadow someone and offer your services. Doesn't necessarily have to be for free, but could be for some sort of funds or benefits, and do the work. And you can have that title, perhaps not with the salary you want, but that's when we have to let go of our ego and use the time for something to really learn. And I say that in a very humble way, as in, for me, when I was a student of yoga, after being a general manager, I got rid of the title on purpose by myself. I left corporate. I was on my own personal sabbatical. So it was not L'Oreal sabbatical. It was a personal sabbatical. And I came to New York by myself with 2 suitcases.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went to a few networking events and they were giving me their business card, and I have no business card to return. And they asked me, so what is it that you do? And I said, oh, at this moment, I'm in between jobs and I'm studying yoga and health. And the funny thing was that it led me to the most beautiful conversations that otherwise I would have never had if I said I'm a general manager at L'Oreal.
Mm-hmm.
By me saying I'm studying yoga every day, every single person was like, oh my gosh, tell me more about that. Like, what are you doing? What did you learn? How can I do that as well? I really think that it's really to be more humble and to know that right now, yes, it's a very, I would say, unsafe place. But some people like me, I chose to be in this place of not having safety security. But with that, you are given the time to work on yourself and to study something that truly interests you. And I see that as one of my biggest gifts and presents in life.
That's incredible. I love that story, because you just never know who you're going to meet and where that's going to lead to, and how those connections can lead to other things in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for us then all of a sudden to understand what time is. Because when we live in this structure of 9 to 5, when we are lucky, a lot of people work from 8 to 10. So when you're lucky, you work from 9 to 5, but there is a schedule. And your schedule are almost driven by the number of meetings that you have.
Right.
So when you are in a sabbatical or when you have your own company, all of a sudden this structure is gone. And that's when all of a sudden, when you realize that time is the most valuable thing. We can either use it or it will just use us. It will just consume us and our anxiety.
Yeah. So I have a few just quick questions to ask you as we close this episode. I could be here forever. The first one is, what is one non-negotiable daily practice that helps you stay grounded?
I would have answered something differently 3 years ago, but right now it really is my yoga practice.
Mm,
Because what I have seen in the past year, if I don't practice mindful movement in the morning, I feel that my posture, but also the way I breathe is being impacted because how you do these little things in the morning truly sets you up for the rest of the day. So, my non negotiable every morning now is to roll out my mat and to walk the talk.
mm,
And it's such a good reminder as well to do it in the morning because in the morning we are not flexible. Everything hurts. And by doing that in the morning and doing certain poses that if it was 6 p.m., I was able to do, but not when it's early morning, it just helps me knowing that I need to practice every single day in order to open up and
mm,
to stretch more and really breathe through the pain. And it's something that keeps me coming back for it.
yeah.
And to know that it's so important to always come back to your practice.
hmm What is something that you used to believe about success that you no longer agree with?
I think the finances is something, and it's sometimes a taboo, but I truly believe that abundance, financial abundance equals success. And
Mm,
also being able to purchase an apartment, that would be success. Right now, true success is freedom. Freedom in
yeah.
how you want to live your day, as well as in where you want to work, who do you want to work with. And I think that's such a strong measure of success is how to spend your day.
Mm. And then lastly, what does building a high performing career mean to you?
I think to make an impact
Mm,
because high performers, they have strong influence,
yeah.
and high achievers, their team simply do things because they do it out of fear or they do it because you ask them to do certain tasks or for them to follow up. When you are a high performer, you create impact and you're influential. People want to follow you and people want to work with you and for you. So, a high performing career is to really do work that impacts people and for people to feel good when they are around you.
hmm
And I really believe that when you are a high performer, you truly embody this servant mindset and you embody to leave the world a bit better. And this is not, having this mindset or this spiritual mindset of being of service, but it's really to add value. And if we are
hmm
not adding value, then in the end, why do we actually work so hard?
Yeah.
It's really to be of service, adding value to the world. And at the end of the day, to have lived an amazing life with people whom we helped and that we actually impacted.
I like that reframe. And then where can people find you, follow you, engage with you, work with you?
Yeah, so for those who are listening from her workplace, you can find me on the platform under the tab coaches. But for those who want to look for me, I think the easiest way is on LinkedIn. And I would also love a special invite, depending on when this is being broadcasted. But please join me in New York, where I have an in-person workshop in Manhattan, and you can all look for that on my LinkedIn page as well, or send me a DM on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And then we do have a program coming up with Pauline. So we'll share more information about how to learn more. It's all about high performance. And we too have a lot of workshops coming up and opportunities to engage with Pauline. So again, we'll share that information. But thank you so much for doing this and for being here and for being involved with her workplace.
Of course, it's my honor.